you, Jasper, again. So now we have sound. All right. So good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, Rohit. Thank you for joining us today. You're the Global Brand Vice President at Unilever for all things ponds. So for those who might not know so much about the product, tell us about your role, tell us about ponds.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, all good. Can you hear us? Yes, thank you.
So Pond's is Unilever's flagship beauty brand.
Okay.
It was a brand which we started more than 150 years ago. Actually, we acquired the brand from the founder many years ago.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a flagship skincare, flagship beauty brand. Sells in about 50 odd countries in the world.
Wow.
And it's a brand which meets the beauty needs of men and women across the world. I can tell you one interesting fact about the brand. This is the brand which actually introduced the first cream in the world. You know, what we think today is such a simple thing like a moisturizer. Mm-hmm. There was a time in point of time where you had to keep the moisturizers or the creams in the refrigerator.
Okay.
Because they were not very stable. This is like more than 50, 60, 70 years ago.
Right.
And we introduced a product called the cold cream.
Yes,
And
that's right.
It's a very iconic product which many women still use it. But the reason why it was called a cold cream was because you didn't need to refrigerate it.
Okay.
And that's how it got the name, and you could keep it outside, and that just started the trend of women using creams. You made it accessible by not having to keep it in refrigerator, which was expensive at that point of time. So that's one interesting fact about one of our products. So I am the global brand vice president for Pond's.
Okay.
And I'm responsible for the brand strategy and the mix development and everything to do with the end-to-end of what the consumers see in the marketplace. I'm the person who will work with my team. Mm-hmm. We actually create everything on the brand. Okay,
fantastic. So folks like me who are just like it simple, easy, we have Pond's to thank for that technology of allowing us to keep creams out of the fridge, which is great. So we're at VidCon, over the past few days and definitely across today, we've been listening to creators for their perspectives on content. So it's great to get the brand perspective, get the advertiser perspective on content. I mean, it's a big word and it's used really loosely these days. How do you define content? What does that mean to you?
So it's a very good question because actually content is a very misconstrued or a misused word. Actually, every piece of work that you do on the brand is content.
Yes.
But I actually tend to separate the two.
Okay.
And I actually would call something called brand say versus other say. And I'll explain to you what the difference really is.
Okay.
Brand say is the typical ad.
Okay.
When the brand is wanting to give a push message, is pushing out a message about what the brand stands for, created by the brand, selling a product news. That's what I call a brand say. Other say is when someone external.
Okay.
When someone external talks about the brand in his or her authentic voice.
Right.
So if there is an influencer who's talking about a brand message in her own style, in her own voice, that is what I call other say.
Got it.
And for all practical purposes, I actually call other say as content and brand say as ads.
Got it.
That's the way I try to kind of keep them separate. I think it's important to understand as to why is other say important in today's world. In the past, how was marketing operating? There was one brand, there was one voice of the brand, there was one agency that the brand was working with.
That's right.
It was a push message. You had transactional relationships with media agencies. The control of the message was fully with the brand.
Yes.
There was one campaign idea.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. How is it different now? When you move your lens to others say, this is what was brand say. Now let's talk about others say.
Okay.
From one voice, it's become many people's voice.
That's right.
So it's the brand plus its allies, the content creators, the influencers. From one agency, one creative agency, you've got multiple content creators. From one campaign idea, you still have one idea, but there are different interpretations, multiple interpretation bases what the content creator thinks about that. From being pushed messaging to now you have branded influencer content. From transactional relationships. It's all about relationship building now.
Got it.
And from full control it's actually become about trust. So that's really how the shift is coming from brand say to others say, to hold to the world of content. And why is it really important in today's world? Because in the old world, when brands and the companies were operating like a lighthouse, sending out push messaging to consumers, in today's world, there is a question, there is serious scrutiny on the authenticity, on the credibility of branded messages.
Absolutely.
So therefore, when the message is in someone else's voice, when it comes from someone else whom you trust, there is more credibility on that message. So I think that's the first thing, that what others say helps you is to achieve more trust about your message and more credibility about your message. And the second thing is to connect with today's millennials and Gen Z. They want something which is their style, their language, and people whom they follow, people whom they like. And that's using content and using others say is actually a brilliant way to connect in today's world with the millennials and the Gen Zs, which you will always struggle with branded messaging, which many people are less interested to see today. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not that the world is over for branded messaging. There is still, there is nothing cheaper than brand say. In terms of achieving reach, that's the most cost-effective way to get your message across. But you have to balance cost-effective reach with engagement. And when you bring in the whole context of others say messaging, that's when you start to bring engagement. And I think in today's marketing world, reach is not the only thing. You have to balance reach with engagement, and that's where the whole content ecosystem and the other say ecosystem is becoming more and more important to us as marketers, to us as brands, in our way of connecting with the new audience.
No, I love that. That was a masterclass right there in terms of drawing that line between advertising and content, and the whole concept of brand say versus what someone else says about your brand, which is so powerful. And I love the word you used to describe content creators, which was allies. They're not, agencies or part, but they're in it with you together to tell the brand story.
Absolutely.
And building on that, now you've set that distinction between content and advertising, and you've identified that, content partners, creators are so critical for us as allies. What's the next step? How do you identify your allies? How do you collaborate with them? What does that process look like from your perspective?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is you have to have the ability to give up control. And I think when it is about working with a content ecosystem, if you want to keep control, then you rather go and make an ad.
Okay.
But if you want to work with the content creators, the first thing and the biggest shift that you as a marketer have to make is to have the humility and the ability to give up control.
Which is a big thing for brands. You own your brand. How do you give up control? How do you rationalize and explain that?
So finally it's a process. Even creating great content is a process, is a science. And when you combine science with creativity, you get magic. So I'll tell you how we go about doing that.
Yes.
I think the first thing really is to really identify who are the content creators you want to work with.
Okay.
And that is done on a basis of various factors, which is where you bring in metrics and science.
Right.
Depending on what is the objective of your campaign, reach, engagement, likes. Depending on that, you kind of look at all the content creators in the ecosystem and actually say, look, if these are three of my objectives, who are the people who actually fit the brief the best?
Got it.
Then you actually see a fit between the consumer and the content creator. What kind of followers is this person having? And is that the person that I want to sell my brand to? Okay. And therefore getting that fit right between your consumers and the content creators' followers is the second thing that you really look at doing that.
Okay.
And then the third thing is, and which for me is the most important thing, is the values.
I love
Finally, it's about the values of the brand and the values of the creator. Unless they match, no reach is good enough, and there's no value of that reach, and there's no value of that engagement.
Right.
So once you've identified the short list of the potential content creators, you then see, will this person fit in with the imagery of the Pond's brand? Does the values of the Pond's brand match up to the values and personalities of this content creator?
Right.
I think once you have that, then you must have a clear brief. You must have a clear brief saying, this is my job to be done. This is the message I want to give. And therefore, whatever other supportings you need to give any information about the product, whatever can help the content creator to know the brand, know the product, know the information better, you provide all of that information.
Okay.
And after that, step back and step aside.
Wow.
Because then you have to let the content creator create content in his or her own personality and her values. Because if you still want to band-aid, please first pick up a cream like that, use it like that, apply it on your face like that, then say these words, then you'd rather go make an ad.
Correct.
No one wants to see that messaging. They want to see authentically how that person creates watchable, exciting content where your product has an integral role to play in there.
Got it.
So then, ask the content creator to use his own authenticity and personality to kind of create the content. Once the content is ready, then it's about, okay, let's check it, evaluate it. And again, you have to keep on bringing science and metrics at every measure so that, we should not think that content creation is just creativity. It's creativity, but then it has to be measured to make sure that it's delivering to the targets and the KPIs that you kind of set. And I think you test it, it's testing well, and then you expect the content creator to put it on their social handle.
Yeah.
And that's where the whole concept of earned media starts to come in. This is earned media. This is you're not paying for this media. This is earned media, and then depending on the likes, the engagement, the clicks, etc., you then decide which of that content needs to be boosted with paid media. Because you finally have to use if you have some great pieces of content, you need to make sure that the world gets to see that.
Absolutely.
And that's where then you start to boost your earned media with paid media.
Okay.
And then you pick up great pieces of content, use the power of reach based advertising, and then you spread it out to as many people as you can spread it using the power of paid media. And then at the end of that campaign, you evaluate, did it meet your objectives? What did well, what did not do well? Which content creator did well, which content creator did not do well? You change the list of creators depending on who's on the top, who's not there, so on and so forth. And then it's rinse and repeat for the next campaign.
Right.
This is the process. It's just a combination of authenticity, a clear brief, identification of the right content creators, giving them the freedom to create some amazing content, and then amplifying great content using the power of paid media on something which has got some great earned media. That's effectively how you that's the way we run the ecosystem when it comes to working with content creators on Ponds.
I love that you say, it's just how you do it, but in that already, there's clearly so much thought that's gone into it. And that's like it's a master checklist, for action. And I like what you were talking about, that at the points where you have control, it's very scientific. And at the points where you kind of release control, that's where creativity comes in, and that's where you allow the creators. And then you bring it back to control with the metrics, and then you bring it out again with earned media, let the audience respond, then you bring it back. So it's that tension between control and creativity it's science and art, right?
Yeah, because we have to remember that with all brands say that we've been doing for like millions of years, we've actually learned a lot about how to build awareness at the lowest cost.
Right.
I think what we don't know how to make a lot of authentic content, which is where the whole content creators ecosystem, gives us the education and do that. But the best use of that ecosystem would be if you can amplify great content. And that's where you'll take on the principles from the old school of marketing, as I would say, where we were all about push-based advertising.
Yep.
But use great pieces of content which have been made in a very authentic manner, but amplify that using paid money. Because if you don't do that, then you haven't been able to get good content going across to most of your followers and the people who could be potential users of your brand. And that's really balancing the two.
Right.
Is the way it works brilliantly.
And I like that. It's bringing in the new ways of working with the creators, but also underpinning that with some very strong fundamentals, of traditional marketing fundamentals. And the way you're talking about it, it's bringing the creators in to use them like a prism. You shine the light through, and that's the brand. And then the way it reflects and refracts out, that's the interpretation, right, of the original.
Yeah, think of it like that. From having one creative agency, you've got now, hundreds of creative people who are working with you on your brand.
Right.
That's the way you got to look at it. It's finally they are your creators. You know, when I would give a brief for a television film, I give it to one creative person in my agency. But here, imagine I'm giving a brief to hundreds of equally creative, creators. There's no difference between are you working in an agency and creating a television film, or are you a great content creator working, working freelance on various things. It's about where can you get great content from,
right?
And then it's my duty to amplify it, so that I can just get more and more people to kind of watch it.
So I'm curious. You mentioned. You give a brief to one agency in the past, and now you're briefing, quite a few, many more creators. How many creators would you work on a campaign, for example?
I think it depends on campaign to campaign, country to country, because the content ecosystem is very local in nature.
Of course.
So you will have because the way you got content, you got creators like micro influencers.
Right.
Nano influencers, micro influencers, all the way up to the celebrities. The more micro you go down, the more local the influencer kind of becomes. Because they have their friends and followers, etc. So the challenge here is how do you balance reach, and cost? Because you can't go and work with 1 million content creators for a campaign. You'll just not be able to manage the networks and the mechanics of that. Therefore, you have to strike the right balance between choosing a combination of micro and nano influencers and macro influencers, and define very clearly the role of if I will use a celebrity and macro influencers and micro influencers, what is the role for each of these? Which of that content creator will give me reach? Which of them will give me advocacy? So you define that basis that, and you come to a number that you can work, which is a combination on the reach and the budget that you really have. But we usually work with hundreds of thousands of content creators per country at any point of time. That's the way.
But I like that you're thinking about the role of each different influencer in the mix. So some you're looking to for advocacy, and some are there perhaps to help convert and help and translate that. And I really like what you said. You've got to give everyone a proper briefing. And it's almost that same regard and that same respect you would give a traditional agency partner, to make sure everyone understands the brand and comes along with you.
Yeah, so let me give you an example. So let's say if you have a new serum that you're kind of launching, and you have a celebrity as one of the content creators, and then let's say you have hundreds of micro influencers who you're working with. So, and let's say each of the micro influencers has possibly 200, 300, 500 followers. So most of the followers there are friends and families, people whom trust. It's like in your family, you have someone who's very beauty oriented, beauty conscious, and you take beauty tips from that person, and suddenly that person realizes that she or she's being followed by 2,000 or 10,000 followers on her Instagram feed. So there the job is more about advocacy.
Right.
Which is saying, okay, you would want to tell your friends and followers about, I use this serum.
Yes.
What did I like about this? Just very authentic, true content kind of coming from there. And then the role of a macro influencer who may have, let's say, some millions of followers may be about building reach. More than in the case of the micro influencer, where it's more about advocacy.
Got it.
So therefore, the brief that you will give to a micro influencer would be different than the brief that you will give to macro influencer. Therefore, the content that kind of gets created is different. So those are the things that you kind of look at this in this kind of a example I was kind of giving to you.
Got it. So there's a nice matrix of thinking who does what, and the role of each individual in there. So now you've got that framework in place, you know who you're working with, you're thinking about it, you've got some great assets, great content ready. What do you do with it? How do you then bring it into the marketing mix? How does that move to commerce?
Look, so this is again a way, I love this space and love this question of,
Great.
Because for me it's about content to commerce.
Yes.
So that's what I kind of call it, that finally, everything that you're doing is to sell more of your product.
Absolutely.
And the world is moving to e-commerce as the destination shopping place. We estimate that at least in a country like China, 60% of our business comes from e-commerce. Of course, in less developed countries like India, Indonesia, it's still in single digits. But our vision is that even in these countries, 30% of our business must come from e-commerce in the next 5 years. It should become amongst the top 2 channels for us. And therefore, the role of content is very important when it comes to e-commerce. So the way, what is it about? There are 2 metrics, which is traffic and conversion.
Yes.
So you need to have content that drives traffic. You need to then have content that converts once people have kind of come to your e-commerce page.
Correct.
So let's talk about the first piece, which is about content that drives traffic. And here it's about first deciding what is the right content to make.
Okay.
Content is always about what consumers are seeking for, whether it's based on their search trends. What are they searching for? How do I get this kind of a look? There was a Met Gala happened last night, and someone was looking like this. How do I get that kind of a makeup look which I have?
I love it.
Or I have, I have spots on my face. What is the best serum that can help me get rid of spots?
Yep.
I have acne and it bothers me a lot. Or when it becomes wintry, my skin starts to feel really, really dry. What's the best moisturizer which can kind of give me, great moisturization? So that's what the consumers are searching for. Then there could be trends. We have a toolbox where you can actually search what are the latest trends. Like in the world of skincare, the biggest trend today is vitamin C.
Okay.
Especially in the COVID world, vitamin C became a big kind of trend. So when you look at what consumers are searching for, what are the trends which are there, and then finally, what is the brand message or what is the brand story you want to give? You combine the 3, and that then becomes the content brief that you have on the table to content creators. I think once you have the content which is then ready, then the second bit for me is the publishing ecosystem.
Okay.
And I don't just mean magazines, I just mean wherever content is published. It could be video on YouTube, it could be influencer sites where people actually go to these sites to kind of see the influencers they're following, magazines, everything where people are coming to read content, not to see ads.
Got it.
I just want to make that differentiation. Because ads are always interrupting. The ad is an interrupted media. Content is where people are actually wanting to read and view content which they genuinely want to see.
Yes.
So you figure out what is the publishing ecosystem that you want to be a part of. And then how does that content that you've created intersects with that publishing ecosystem?
Right.
Where you have your consumers coming. And if you do these 2 jobs very well, you will hopefully get your consumers reaching your e-com site.
Got it.
Because through this you seed in your brand message, and every piece of content should be a shoppable content, and then you get the consumers into your e-commerce site. And I think once the consumer has come into your e-commerce site is where the whole idea of performance marketing needs to then kick off.
Okay.
You've got the content which drove traffic. Now it's the job of the performance marketing to actually start converting people who are already there, because they've come with the mindset they want to buy something. They're searching, they're doing. You have to get them to press the buy now button.
Absolutely.
And then whether it's about giving more information about the product, is it about a promotion, is it remarketing if he decides to not buy at that point in time and goes away. And this is where you really understand the data kicks in and figure out why did she not buy, what could be the other pieces of content which could be making a buy. And this is where ads become more important than the content that you had, because contents are, I think, better off at helping people drive traffic. But here it's more about, you gotta close the deal.
Absolutely.
You gotta close the deal here. And that's where the performance marketing kicks in. And therefore for me, this content to commerce ecosystem is what unifies the whole marketing sales pitch for me, the whole experience for me. And how do you use the right content through the content influencer ecosystem to get traffic? And then how do you use performance marketing to convert the people who will actually come there to buy, so that you can actually convert everything into a sale. And then again, what's worked, what's not worked, it's the rinse, repeat cycle, and then you just do that every day, every minute. So that's the way it kind of works for me.
Do you know, Rohit, the professionals make it seem so easy, because you've just said in like 25, 30 minutes what so many of us are trying to crack. We've asked this question to the creators a lot. What's your advice when it comes to working with brands? What will you tell brands? And we've got a room full of creators. You've got Global Vice President of Brand for Ponds. What would you say to creators who want to work with brands? What piece of advice do you have?
I think you've got to understand how can you add value to a brand.
Okay.
And value doesn't come only with reach. Because you've got to understand that the reach can also be obtained through paid advertising.
Yes.
Through celebrities. I think what I look for in content creators is how can you make my brand become even more relevant to my consumers?
Got it.
How can you use your ingenuity, how can you use your relationship with your followers and add value to my brand? So that when you create something in a very authentic manner,
right,
people love you and they love my brand because they love you. So how do you add value to my brand? In building a relationship with your followers is the most important point, the way I look at it.
Okay.
Rather than saying how many people I reach or, those are hard metrics. It's more of the softer metrics that I'm looking at. And finally, do your values and personalities align with that of the brand? Because if they don't, then the consumers will see the inauthenticity.
Right.
But if they do, then the question is, how can we amplify it even further? And for me, I was reading a book, I don't know how many people have read the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
Okay.
The person who founded Nike. And he talks about, there's a chapter in the book where his son dies because of an accident. And he talks about the number of people who were his, whether you call this celebrities or no one calls them celebrities now, there's content creators, with whom he had a personal relationship, who reached out to him and were with him during that point of time.
Right.
That's the relationship that I want to build with my content creators.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Wherein you understand the brand, you understand the team, and you understand your consumers, and you build a relationship. As I spoke in the beginning, it's about not transactional relationships, but relationship building between the brand and the content creator, so that these relationships can exist forever. A content creator must understand how can you come to that stage, how can you reach that stage with the brand, so that you're not doing one campaign, but you're thinking about how can I be with this brand till the time I do creation and till the time the brand exists. That is the level of relationship that I want to reach, and that's what makes a that's what I would look forward in a content creator. It may sound esoteric, it may sound too ephemeral, but I think that's the level that we got to reach if you really want to be partners with a brand and a content creator.
Oh my gosh. So, hey, look, if you're looking for a brand that's interested in building long-term partnerships, that is looking for value and values, I do believe Rohit's your man and Ponds your brand. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That was a masterclass. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.